Hi guys, in today's review we will be looking at this Bachmann locomotive, exclusively commissioned by Rails of Sheffield. And this is the LNWR Improved Precedent class. Like I said, this is exclusive to Rails of Sheffield. It's the only place you can buy them, apart from the Preserve one, which you can buy from Sheldon or the National Railway Museum. Like I said, this is exclusive. It's in its pre-grouping livery, and it's a 240 locomotive. I believe it's the first one ever to be in ready to run, not including the 14XX, is it? Because that's the same sort of wheel arrangement. But yeah, we'll get into it and see what it's all about, shall we? So here goes. Starting off at the detail bag you get with it, we start off with the wheel set that's in it. The wheel set that's there, it has no traction tyres on this set anyway. You also get some other details like chain links and hooks as well to add to the front and back of the locomotive. You also get what I think is a lamp iron as well in black. And there's another thing in there that I'm not too sure what it is. It could be a water scoop of some description. That's in there too. So you get a few bits in there. You also get some etched nameplates for the locomotive. You get the nameplates themselves that go on the splashes, and you also get the number ones as well of the locomotive, which is a nice touch from Bachmann. They didn't have to go to that sort of trouble for this locomotive, but at least they put them in there for you if you want to add them yourselves. As we move on to the front of the locomotive, on the front of the locomotive you do get a small tension lock coupling already added. You also get unsprung buffers, but they are metal, and this type is a web design of the buffers for the LNWR. You also get an air pipe or vacuum pipe. There's also a hole for some detail parts that's in the bag, and there's a few rivets dotted around. As we move on up just a little bit, there's a small pipe as well just before the air brake on top. We also can see the cylinders as well in black. We also have the LNWR style smoke box start door handle sort of thing, like a submarine style, that is metal. And then we have a silver metal handrail at the top with a lamp iron to go with it. And then we have the LNWR style chimney as well. As we move on to the side of the locomotive, both sides of the locomotive are exactly the same, apart from the other side has the reverser between the splasher and the cab. That is there, it's in black. It's around the other side. Most of this model is die-cast. It's quite heavy, it's die-cast. Let's start with the wheel configuration. Wheel configuration for this locomotive is a 240, and I believe it's the first time it's ever been made in ready to run. The wheels are all metal, the rod is metal as well, so it does capture the locomotive correctly, I believe, as well. As we move on to the livery itself, the livery itself is in LNWR black. There's a certain name for it, but I'm not sure what the correct name is. It's black anyway, and it has some lining on the boiler in red, black and red. As you look between the boiler and the frames, you can see what looks like to be some sort of motion that they've picked out in red, which is a nice touch. Bachmann do that really well. It's a fantastic touch. As we move along to the first splasher, the first splasher has the nameplate on, which is Look Now, and it has the LNWR crest, which is crisply printed. I don't see the need to add the plates myself to it. You'll see the place where the crew walk up and down. That is there as well, and there's a gap in the splasher, I want to call it, as well, which is correct for the model. We also have a handrail going around and some piping too. The handrail is metal, may I add. As we move along to the cab area, the cab area itself again has that number of the locomotive, which is 1673. Like I said, if you wanted to add the plate to it, you can. Bachmann have gave you that choice. And the background for that is red with yellow writing. We also have some lining around that as well, and around the cab, which I think is white, black, red, if I got that correct. We do have a step too, and then we have the lining around the front half of the cab. As we move on to the part that most people look forward to in a modern day review, and that is the cab detail and the front of the tender. Bachmann have not let us down with the cab detail they've done. The cab is rather exposed for I think it's a Victorian locomotive. Everything in there is painted to a high standard. The water gauges, the dials all have painting. We have a wood flowing effect going on as well. There's a few seats, I think, as well. But everything in there is painted to a high standard. You also have flush glazing too to go with it in the windows. Quite nice actually. As we move along to the front of the tender. The front of the tender does have that foreplate going up and down. That one does move. It is there and it does move. It's a nice touch, and that is metal. We also have a coal chute as well, and a few cupboards for the firemen to mess around with on the travels. They are all there as well. Bachmann have gone to a lot of trouble to get this correct, and I think we have some buffers on the front of the tender as well. As we move on to the side of the tender, there is some difference to the side of the tender, but I'll come to that later on. As you can tell, this is a LNWR tender, and it doesn't have LNWR on the tender. It's just black with the lining of white, black and red around the tender, which is nice. There's a few handrails dotted around as well in black. We also have, looks like, some lining along the chassis of the tender. I want to call it in white, which is nice. We also have steps. Now, as we move down to the wheel configuration, the wheel configuration is a little odd. 6-wheel tender, but the middle axle is a little bit backwards compared to other tenders from this era, I believe. But it's all crisply moulded and it's wonderful. The wheels are metal and it's a nice looking tender. I've got to be honest with you. There's loads of rivets on the tender as well. Hopefully my camera will pick them up. And you can also see the fireman's toolbox as well on tender top. As we move on to the back of the tender, now the back of the tender is pretty much like the front. We do have some irons, knock stuff off the track, which is great. We also have a small tension lock coupling, I think it's NEM one. The buffer beam itself and housing is in black. The buffers themselves, like I said before, are the web design, and they're not sprung, but they are metal, which is fantastic. I think there could be a few rivets on there as well. There's also a hole for your detail pack, and we have a vacuum pipe or an air pipe there too. As we move on up, it looks like we have at least a couple of lamp irons. We also have a plate in the middle, which could be for water or coal or the tender type. That is there as well. And then we have a lamp iron at the top and a little lip too. The tender itself is in black. There's not much to see, and if it is, I can't see. I'm struggling with my eyesight. As we do a bird's eye view on top of the tender now, the water filler cap is in the centre of the coal load. The coal load is removable and it is metal. I think you have to take the water filler cap out first to remove the coal load, which is great because some of Bachmann's older ones will just fall out randomly when you turn them upside down to service them. And then we have some sticky out things. I think they're for the tarpauling. I think that's what they're for, or tools. They are there only on one side, and this is correct for the era of the model. It being pre-grouping, that is correct. I believe it's different to Hardwick, which is preserved. Failing that, it is highly detailed. You see the boxes and you can see some other stuff that Bachmann have modelled down near the fireman's place. As we do an aerial view on top of the locomotive now, the top of the locomotive is die-cast. Like I said, the tender itself body is plastic, but at least the locomotive is die-cast. We start with the usual places, which is the cab roof. The cab roof does have a few rivets. It also has, I think, some whistles, 2 metal whistles there, which is fantastic. They are nice. The safety valves themselves, I believe, are a ram's bottom design, and they do look the part. They are nice as well. You can see some of that wonderful lining on the locomotive. Like I said before, it's red, black and red on the boiler banding. We also have a high-ish dome, and then we have a chimney as well. Just before the chimney, there is a really small valve of some description there, but that is there. That's a nice touch. It's very delicate, but it's there. As we do an underneath look at this locomotive now, yes, the locomotive does have a traction tyre, but at least Bachmann have gave you the choice to change it if you didn't want the traction tyre on. The front wheel is like a radius one. It just moves from side to side to go around bends. That is great. Taking off the brake rigging, you don't have to when you want to change the wheels. It just comes off in one piece, which is great from the board. And there's a few screws to take that off. If there's another screw underneath the drawbar to take off the shell, and one under the front coupling if you wanted to do that. We do have copper stripped pickups, and I think it's the first 2 wheels or the driving wheels on this locomotive. But there is some underframe detail parts we can see here as well. And finally, as we move on to the loco and tender connection, the loco and tender connection is the usual Bachmann one at this point in time, which is a stump with a bar going across and some wires. It's not screwed in at both ends, only in the loco end, which personally I don't like, but that's the way Bachmann have done it for years, and hopefully they will change that design sooner. Like I said, we do have a plug in here. It's just after the first set of wheels on the tender. We also have pickups on this tender, and it's only 4 lots of wheels by the looks of it. It's the front lot and the back lot. The middle ones don't have any by the looks of it. There's some sort of rigging underneath there between the middle one and the back one. There's some sort of rigging there, which is okay. There is also a hole for which I think is a water scoop in the back, and then you can see the coupling as well. The reason my tender is on its side, or the locomotive on its side, is a simple reason. The things that hang out over the tender, I'm scared of breaking them if I put them into the cradle, so just be wary about that. So that's it on the tracks. Next up will be the usual points test and second radius test. Some of my Bachmanns cannot do second radius. I'm not saying this can't, I'm saying some of them can't do second radius. That's why I do the second radius test, even if it's a small locomotive. So here goes, let's see if we can manage it, shall we? Little fast, but it made it. What's that? 20. It made it, which is surprising. A little fast. So yeah, it managed the second radius and points test okay. I believe a little fast over the points probably, but it's a traction tyre and some of my points it will stop. So yeah, next up will be some slow speed and I'll wind it a train and I will see you at the end. It's not bad. We're talking there, 20, 18, it's not bad. It is quite slow. Not bad for a DCC one, and it has got a traction tyre. So yeah guys, that's the end of the running session and the review. Before I give my opinion, I'll show you what it ran with, which is the Hornby LNWR 4 and 6 wheel coaches, which look perfectly fine with this. I was waiting for the Hattons ones to turn up, but they got pushed back. So yeah, my opinion now on this locomotive. For the price it is it too much? I don't know, because the way you got to look at it is, if you were to get a kit of one, could you build the kit to this standard for this price? I'm guessing not. Okay, it's got a plastic tender and a die-cast boiler on the locomotive, but again, it's £220. Could you build a kit for that price? about it. I had one issue with mine, and the issue that I had was the middle set of wheels on the tender were loose in the box. So I clipped them back in place. That's the only issue I had. Failing that, I've had no other issues, no quality control issues apart from that one. The only other slight issue I have is the draw bar between tender and loco is not like the other ones on the H class, the C class, the H2, H1. It doesn't move. It's firmly fixed in place. There's no screw to make it looser, so it's more of a bounce when you go backwards or forwards. That's the only issue apart from traction tyres, which I'm not going to go into. But 220 pound locomotive with traction tyres, not good. I might try and train mine out for some other ones to see if it runs any better, because as you saw, it did jerk. But that's my opinion. If you can build a kit to this standard for the money, then go for it. But if you can't, it's the second best thing to buy, a ready to run one. But it's a little high for my liking. So anyway, guys, that was my take on the rails of Sheffield and the Bachmann LNWR improved Precedent class. That was my take, and that is look now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. So please take care.